A retirement study from Zeti shows that people fear retirement as much as they fear death. The biggest fear about retirement was running out of money, not having that income. In this video, I'm going to give you 3 steps to overcome the fear of retirement. We're going to focus on retirement finances in this video, since the biggest fear about retirement was running out of money or not having that income. The very first step is understanding why we do something. When we understand why we do something, it helps us stop doing it. We can catch ourselves. So the first step is to simply understand why we worry so much about money. That's the first step in remedying the problem. I listened to a video recently, and the interview was 2 entrepreneurs about their successes. They had each sold their businesses in double-digit millions, so over $10 million. Each of these guys being interviewed had sold over $10 million businesses, and they had the money. They both shared that they were very worried about running out of money. Even though they sold their businesses and made all this money, they still were worried about money. They explained exactly how they invested. They said they knew that they could improve their investment returns, but fear kept them from doing so. And these guys were basically having retirement fear. You know, they had made plenty of money to not have to work anymore based on their lifestyle expenses. Both of these guys had plenty of money to live how they wanted, and they knew they had plenty of money, yet they were still living in fear of retirement. It's only natural, though, to worry about money, and here's why. First, money triggers emotions based on Maslow's hierarchy of needs, since we need money to survive. We need money to pay for food and shelter. Second, as humans, our brains are wired to be afraid because of our cave-dwelling days. If we weren't afraid back during our cave-dwelling days, we would have been eaten by a tiger or starved to death, so we really needed to be afraid. We're placing our fear, though, on money, that drive, that need to be afraid of something. We're placing it now on financial fear, and specifically in retirement, because job income ceases at that time. And then third, most of us picked up on fear about money from our parents. Most of our parents either went through the Great Depression or their parents went through the Great Depression, and it fuels from one generation to the next, those fears about money, those deep-rooted fears. So step 1 then is simply understanding why we worry about money, and we've just addressed that. Knowing this, you can overcome your fear of retirement by doing the 3 things below. So we know that those things happen. So what can we do to address it, though, right? Okay, so the first thing is, when you catch yourself feeling that angst or that worry, remind yourself that you're creating fear as part of your human wiring, that the fear may not be needed. Now, yes, some worry is very valid. You know, maybe you need to take action in order to have enough money in retirement. But like in the example of these guys that sold their businesses for over 10 million, even after we have enough money, we're wired that we're worried about money. And this increases even more in retirement because the income ceases. Okay, so the next thing you can do is you can journal about what you learned from your parents about money, and then you can choose your own beliefs about money. You don't have to buy into the family messages about money that you picked up on. And then the third thing you can do is fine-tune your retirement plan and just increase your investing knowledge so you can invest better. I mean, learning about something helps us stop worrying about it and being so afraid of it, because we become confident when we increase our knowledge about something. We just do a better job too. So that's a huge thing that you can do to overcome fear of retirement. Okay, so that was all step one. Step one was sort of long. Step two then is to establish a minimum baseline. Knowing that our fear of retirement is very deep rooted because it relates to money and it's related to our survival instincts, we can overcome that by establishing a minimum baseline for the income that's needed to survive. That's what we're afraid of, is not surviving. That's a good reason for that deep-rooted fear of retirement. Forget about your dream house for a minute. Forget about that desired lifestyle that I encourage you to think about. So just forget about all that and jot down about how much it would take for you to buy food for you and or your family and live in an apartment in an area where you would feel safe. You have a roof over your head, you're safe, and you're not going to starve. If you live in a really expensive area, you may need to factor in the possibility of a move to a cheaper area. I want you to really, really just go down to survival mode with this. Because what we're doing is we're making it okay. We're knowing that you're going to survive. And do you want this? Probably not, but it's going to help you see that you can survive and let go of that fear of not having enough money in retirement to survive. Once you've done this, you'll probably be shocked to see how little it takes for you to survive. So you can stop worrying about starving and not having a place to live in retirement, hopefully after you've done this exercise. Okay, now the third step is to look at your expenses from the past 6 months or year. Stick with me on this. I do this by downloading my expenses to a spreadsheet so I can manipulate the data and play with my numbers. Yes, I am admittedly a nerd about this, but it's really a great way to do it. Just download your numbers and then separate the essential items from the non-essential items on that spreadsheet. You can also think of this as variable versus fixed expenses, but this is a little bit different. These are similar to the survival things, but they're a little bit different, a little bit closer to that lifestyle that you really want. I did this with myself recently, and I also like to do this with financial coaching clients who have financial fear about retirement, even when it's clear they have plenty of money to fund their desired lifestyle, not just get by, but plenty of money. So this is a really good step to do. So now you've looked at all your expenses, you've separated them between essential and non-essential items. So just if you need some help, the essential items are going to be things like your mortgage if you have one, your health insurance, other insurance like home and auto, liability insurance if you have umbrella insurance, loan payments, and this is where little to no debt really helps out. Utilities such as water and electricity. I would not include here cable or TV services. Those are really not essential. Car maintenance, gas for your car if, like me, you don't have an electric car. Income taxes and property taxes. Those are most of our essential expenses. So think about what yours are. You may have a couple more. Now total all of these expenses and then deduct these expenses from your monthly income. You're going to see that the difference between those two numbers, so your income less those essential expenses, the rest of that is money that you get to choose how you're spending it. Holy cow, what a different perspective this is when you do this and you see, wow, I'm really getting to choose that I want to buy this dog food for my dog. That was sort of a big one for me because I'm a little bit over the top about what I feed my dog. Other things, there's so many things that we can look at and go, this really is a choice. And once you do this, it will provide the realization for how much you're choosing when it comes to using your money. And it will allow you to fine-tune your expenses, but also it will free you of fear of retirement. because you see that you're making choices. And when we know we're making choices versus feeling like a victim to something, our situation, then we can do better. Now, here are some examples. You may be a little confused about what would be essential versus non-essential. So let me throw out a few examples. So for example, you may be thinking, what about my car payment? Okay, so I like to pay cash for cars. So I don't have a car payment, but a lot of people do. Most people, though, could pay off their car payment for that very nice car and buy a cheap car, right? They don't have to have that car payment, for most people. Okay, so it's again, seeing where there are choices that are being made. And this is where you can really fine-tune your expenses. You may be thinking, well, what about my iPhone payment? Okay, so you can buy a cheap phone and just pay cash for it and not have an iPhone or an iPhone payment. Even your mortgage or your rent can be reduced or sometimes eliminated. Grocery bills can almost always be reduced. We've sort of started having a little bit of fun with this one. When I did this exercise, I immediately knocked almost $100 off of our television subscriptions, as well as several other expenses that we really didn't choose to use money on. I talk more about this in another video. I'll put a link to it. I think it's over here. And you can check that out if this interests you. Take these 3 steps to overcome retirement fear. And remember, retire certain. It's a really big step.